Working as software developers, we know there's just so much stuff to learn, and there's so much exciting stuff happening all the time, and it's such a fast-paced, changing environment. It really is hard to decide on where to focus your efforts in learning. And I think what a good approach is especially in terms of tooling, is looking for technologies and skills that kind of translate across multiple domains. And specifically thinking about the work that we do tend to work a lot with text, and anything that kind of makes working with text easier, I think, is kind of a good target for investing your time in. And so one of those things that I found quite useful is learning Vim. Now Vim, a lot of you might know it as just being an editor, and some people might think it's a hard thing to learn. And while Vim is an editor, I kind of like looking at Vim from a slightly different point of view. And the way I look at Vim is, I think of it more as being a grammar. And to put that in a bit of context, maybe you're familiar with working with a terminal or a shell, which gives you nice low-level access to the operating system. But a shell is also quite useful in working with a file system, so there's lots of little commands to work with a file system. And I think the big power of Vim, or the Vim grammar, lies in that it kind of brings those kind of concepts to working with texts. So it's much more than just being a set of shortcuts. It's actually a grammar you can learn to quickly manipulate text. And because it works across multiple IDEs and across multiple platforms, it's the kind of thing that once you learn it and invest time and energy into developing muscle memory for using those Vim commands, that it can really accompany you through your entire career. And so I'm a big fan of people learning that kind of grammar, just because it makes working with text a lot easier. Now, Vim is such a powerful tool, it can be quite overwhelming to learn. And what I want to do in this video is just show you my approach to learning Vim, or what I think is a good approach to learning Vim. And with that, welcome to Herding Bits. My name is Marcel, and today we're going to have a look at what I think is a good approach to getting to learn Vim. At the end of this video, you should have a good understanding on how the Vim grammar works. I'll also share with you some of my favorite commands to get you started and add some power to your IDE. And of course, if you like these videos, be sure to like and subscribe. If you don't know what Vim is, I've got a video up explaining why you should learn in Vim in 2022. I'll leave a link to that in the description below. And with that, let's have a look how to get started in learning Vim. This is how I would start learning Vim if I had to do it all over again. And if I had a second run at it, I probably wouldn't start out learning Vim using the Vim editor. I'd probably start learning Vim, the Vim grammar, in my IDE. And that way I could avoid a lot of the frustrations and a lot of the configuration you need to do to get Vim doing all the things you wanted to do, and that way you can get some power into your existing workflow as quickly as possible. And maybe you don't even want to go all the way down and use all of Vim's features. Maybe you only want to use a couple of shortcuts that your IDE is missing, and that's probably my typical application of applying what I call the Vim grammar. And with that, I want to say, let's close down Vim, and instead let's open up an IDE like Visual Studio Code. Seems to be quite a popular IDE at this point in time. Something I use quite regularly to do a lot of work, especially if I'm working with TypeScript, Node, that kind of stuff. And what we're going to do is we just want to go to the marketplace, and we want to look for a Vim emulator. And the one I use is this one here, called VSCode Vim. Let's just quickly install that. That's installed now. Minimize that, I close that down, and let's have a look at a demo page. And the first thing you can see now is it's already a couple little tweaks that the emulator has done for me. One is that it shows me the mode that Vim is in down the bottom here. It says normal mode. And normal mode is the default behavior in Vim. And the idea in normal mode is that you're browsing through the source code or through your document. And then you've got other modes to do specific functions, like insert mode is the next popular one. And insert mode would be the mode that is most closely to your IDE behaving like it would if you didn't have the plugin installed. So just be aware of that. The other clue for the different modes is the cursor. The cursor keys up here is now changed to a solid bar, signifying that I'm in normal mode. Now, if I wanted my editor to behave like it did prior to installing the Vim plugin, what I want to do is I want to go into insert mode. Insert mode is just I for insert mode. So if I press I can see down here the Visual Studio Code plugin is showing me now that I'm in insert mode. And the shape of my cursor is now changed to just be a thin line. So now I don't know I'm in insert mode. And now my IDE just behaves like it always has. So I can use the cursor keys to move around. If I go down You scroll down here a little bit. If I wanted to use code completion, I can just type in that, and I've got all my code completion stuff working here. So everything works as it normally does now. I can just use this editor as if the plugin wasn't really installed. Now, if I wanted to go back into normal mode in Vim terms, that's escape. So you escape out of a mode. You always escape out of certain modes, and you do it with the escape key. So if I press escape, now I'm back what Vim calls normal mode, and my cursor's changed back, and that's kind of how you switch modes in Vim. The other important feature of Vim is you've got something called the console. And in an IDE, if you press the console, it's colon. It's the colon key. And then down the bottom here, you can see I've got like a little mini terminal. And that's where I can issue special Vim commands in that terminal. One of the ones I use all the time is to quickly move to a certain line in my source code. For example, if I wanted to move up to line 10, for example, I could just type 10, so 10, and press enter. And now my cursor jumps straight up to line 10. So that's the console. The approach that I would think about, like, I'm not really good at rote learning, and I tried to learn Vim through rote learning for several times before I kind of got frustrated. And then what actually worked for me was learning Vim like a language. And then what I thought about, well, Vim's actually got a grammar and like language. And once you know certain verbs and certain nouns, then you can combine them all kinds of interesting ways to do whatever you want to express inside your document or how you want to edit your document. And that's where the power lies. Now, Vim's got hundreds of different ways of constructing nouns, and it's got heaps and heaps and heaps and heaps of different operations or verbs, if you like. And so if you know these nouns, and in Vim terms, that'd be motions as well as text objects. You kind of think of them as your nouns, and then your operations, think of them as your verbs, and then you can combine nouns and verbs together to do all kinds of things. The things I'm going to show you now are probably things you've got keyboard shortcuts for already. So that's a little bit unfortunate, but they kind of make it easier to explain the concept of noun and verbs. And I encourage you that after you've watched this video, go and explore some of the Vim documentation or do some Googling for motions and text objects to find ones which work for you, which you can find really, really useful. Okay, so let's think about nouns first of all. And nouns kind of describe parts of the text. So in Vim's terms, you've got motions, and the clues in the name. Motions kind of move the cursor around. And if you think in terms of a computer game, maybe you're a gamer and you play lots of games, it's quite common for gamers to use AWSD to move characters around a screen rather than their cursor keys. And the reason for that is it's just more efficient for your hands are and your mouse is, for example, to use AWSD in a game, because that's kind of more conducive to the context of playing a game. Now, in terms of editing text, well, most of us can touch type. What ends up happening is your hands end up being on the home row, HJKL. And Vim actually lets you move around using those keys. As an example, J moves up, J moves down, K moves up, L moves right, and H moves left. And once you get used to that, it feels really, really natural. Just like when you're playing a computer game, moving your character around, it feels also really, really natural just to use your right hand on the home row to move around. So I talked about motions being like nouns. And a simple motion is just moving one character at a time. We just looked at that, and I can do that with the H, L, J, and K keys, and that moves one character at a time. Another noun that I use quite often is to move words at a time, and I know there's already keyboard shortcuts in your operating system, but remember, I just want to show you the principles behind nouns and then how you can expand on that. And the common ones I use are words, and that moves one word at a time. So every time I press W, the cursor will move one word. If I wanted to go back one word, always go back to the beginning, that's B. And every time I press B, I jump back one word. If I wanted to go to the end of a word, always go to the end of a word, that's E. And E always goes to the end of the word. Okay, so far we haven't seen anything really quite different from what you could do faster on using your standard keyboard shortcuts. But I could also now combine those couple of nouns with numbers to apply those motions several times. And as an example, if I want to skip 3 words to the right, I could just press 3 and then W, and now I jump 3 words to the right. If I wanted to go to the 4th word on the end, I could put in 4E, and now jump to the 4th word to the end of the line. So that's kind of how I can start combining already, with a little bit of knowledge, I can already move around my document quite quickly. If I wanted to move down, let's say I wanted to move down 6 lines to line 18, I can just press 6 and J, and now I'm down 6 lines, and that's how you can combine those commands. Another basics thing you want to do is to be able to copy and paste. Now I know you'll probably end up using Control X and C and V, but you can do lots of things when you store stuff in Vim's registers, and that's kind of an advanced feature, but I encourage you to kind of look that up. And to do that, you need to know how Vim brings those kind of areas that you want to select into its registers. And Vim calls that yanking. So you yank stuff into a register, and then you can paste stuff out of the register. And Vim actually has a built-in clipboard manager where you can have many different areas you can copy, and then you can just paste out of the various registers. But I don't really want to go too deep into that. I might save that for another video, but that's another powerful feature. But yanking is kind of an important thing to know that it exists. Let's go up to line 12, and let's go to the third word. And let's say I want to select the text from the A to the end of the E. So what I want to do is I want to yank to the end. And now I've copied that into the register. And if I want to paste that text somewhere, I could just press the P key, P for paste, and then that pastes it in there. If I make a mistake, I can press U, U for undo. So U always will undo my changes. And let's say I wanted to paste it 4 times. Then I can press 4, P, and now I've pasted that text 4 times. Another useful thing to know is as I'm constructing these commands out of verbs and nouns, you can then reapply them. For example, let's go to the top of the document there. Let's go into normal mode. Go to line 4. Something I use all the time is, let's say I'm inside these inverted commas. There's a noun I can build called change inside, or with the I key. So if I wanted to change the text inside the inverted commas, I can say C for change, I for inside, and now I've got to say inside what? And I want to say, well, inside inverted commas. And then Vim yanks that text into the register, and it puts me into insert mode. I can now put some text in here. This is great, for example. And now I exit back into normal mode, and Vim has now stored what I just did as a macro. And I can repeat that macro now using the full stop key. As an example, if I go inside the next set of inverted commas, if I want to reapply that macro, I can now press the full stop key, and Vim will just replay that last macro that I stored. The inside command works with different things. There's plenty of them. You can look them up, but some of them are kind of intuitive. Like once you know inside, you can try different things to figure out if Vim's got one. Another one I find very useful is let's just go and generate let's just generate a new tag here. Let's make a heading, and let's put some text in that heading and go back. I can also change inside a tag, and with that it would be change inside tag, and now I can just change all the text inside that tag. This is great, and that works with a whole bunch of stuff. Now the other thing I might want to do is I might want to delete something. So now I've learned a new verb. I know that D is delete, that's a new verb, and I can combine that now with all the other nouns that I already know. And I've learned before that I can do change inside something. Well, now I can delete inside something, because I've learned a new verb, and I can combine that with the nouns that I know. What do I know? Delete, okay. Delete inside tag, and I've now deleted that inside the tag. Deleting also stores stuff in the register. And if I just say, okay, let's paste, so now I can paste that text in there. And that's always how it works. It's always the same pattern. Once you learn a operation, then you combine it with the nouns. And nouns, there's so many nouns. There's a lot there. Just want to show you 2 more things, and then that should be enough to get you going. This is the verb that lets you uppercase and lowercase text. So the verb to lowercase something is G lowercase u. That's to lowercase something. And G uppercase u is a verb that uppercases whatever you combine with the nouns. If I go to the Vim here, if I want to uppercase the word Vim, well, we know our verb is G uppercase U. What I want to uppercase, the word, and it's uppercase. If I want to do the whole line, I can go to the beginning of the line, so that's carry 6. And I want to uppercase everything to the end, so it's G uppercase to the end. Oops, I was on the wrong line. There we go. Let's reapply that. What I just did then there, I was on the wrong line, but I had that macro stored, so all I had to do is drop down one line and then reapply the macro with a full stop, and I just replayed that. I'll just do that again. Let's go down to verbs and replay the macro. Done. So that's kind of how I ended up learning Vim, just by doing. And I encourage you just to pick a couple of things you find really, really useful so you don't get overwhelmed. And try and pick things that add something to the IDE. Now, I know I showed you things like copy and paste, but that was just kind of to demonstrate how the grammar works. Probably more realistically, you'll keep using whatever you do to copy and paste on your machine. But things like uppercasing, lowercasing, deleting text inside tags or inside inverted commas, those might be things that you find really, really useful and that you can integrate in your workflow. And then as you expand your knowledge, there's so many different things you can add to this editor. It's got split windows, it's got dictionaries, auto-completion, there's like endless learning. And that's the end of the video. I really, really hope you give Vim a go. And look, it doesn't work for everyone, but I think everyone should at least give it a go. And give it a fair crack, give it like a week. And then either you'll embrace it and you'll keep learning more, or you'll decide it's not for you, and that's okay too. See you in the next video. Cheers.